I am Dr. Afroz Alam. I am presently working as Assistant Professor of Political Science at National Law University of Orissa, Cuttack. I am going to deal with the module Conceptions of Social Justice, John Rawls, Frederich Hayek, Robert Nozick, Amarty Sen, and Martha Nussbaum. This is a part of the subject paper named Advanced Jurisprudence. Let us discuss with an overview of this module. As we know that for centuries, human society is constantly assessed with the principle of social justice. Yet, the demands and principle of social justice are not always clear. What is social justice? Why does social justice matter? Is it concerned with the equal opportunity or outcome, or distribution of resources or capabilities, or removal of poverty, or creation of just institutions? There are great theoretical disagreements on the issues and remedies of the social justice concept. For example, John Rawls' egalitarian overtones of social justice was criticized by the libertarian scholars. Frederich Hayek regarded social justice as a visual word, while Robert Nozick argued that if individuals have acquired their property through just transactions, then whatever results is just. On the other hand, Amartya Sen and Martha Nussbaum approached the question of justice on a totally different terrain of capability. In this background, we aim to explore broad context of social justice issues in different theoretical framework through the writings and opinions of eminent thinkers like John Rawls, Frederich Hayek, Robert Nozick, Amartya Sen, and Martha Nussbaum. Let us discuss what is the objectives and learning outcome of this module. After going through this unit, you should be able to understand the meaning and nature of social justice. You should be able to understand the overarching theoretical frameworks of social justice developed by John Rawls, Frederich Hayek, Robert Nozick, Amartya Sen, and Martha Nussbaum. You will be able to articulate your own positions in a clear, coherent, and logical manner on the issues of social justice. And you should also be able to examine issues concerning social justice and critically analyze them with remedial tools. Let us first understand what is social justice. The term social justice in the modern sense has been used to ensure social well-being of the people. It is generally argued that in conditions of social justice, people are not being discriminated against, nor their welfare nor and well-being constrained or prejudiced on the basis of gender, sexuality, religion, political affiliations, age, race, belief, disability, location, social class, socioeconomic circumstances, or other characteristic of background or group membership. However, as a distinct concept, social justice is concerned with the just distribution of resources, opportunities, and privileges in the society as well as wages, profits, housing, medical care, welfare schemes to meet the principles of justice. In a word, social justice is all about who should get what and how. Opinions of the political thinkers are highly divided on what is called just distribution. As a result, a number of contrasting principles of social justice came into effect, like to each according to his needs, to each according to his rights, to each according to his deserts, to each according to his labor, and to each according to his capability. To address the issue of social justice more seriously, we will focus on the work of five thinkers, namely John Rawls, Frederich Hayek, Robert Nozick, Amartya Sen, and Martha Nussbaum. But let us first start with John Rawls. But before addressing the question of justice in relation with John Rawls, first we should know who is John Rawls. John Bodley Rawls was an American philosopher and a prominent figure in moral and political philosophy. He was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. His father was a prominent lawyer, his mother a chapter president of the League of Women Voters. John Rawls studied at Princeton, where he was influenced by Winston student Norman Malcolm, and at Oxford, where he worked with H.L.A. Hart, Saya Berlin, and Stuart Hampshire. His first professional appointment were at Cornell and MIT. In 1962, John Rawls joined the faculty at Harvard, where he taught for more than 30 years. This is in itself an achievement for a person who is coming from this background. John Rawls' adult life was scholarly one. Its major event occurred within his writings. The exceptions were two world wars. As a college student, John Rawls wrote an intensely religious senior thesis and had considered studying for the priesthood. But what a surprise! Yet John Rawls lost his Christian faith as an infant man in World War II on seeing the capriciousness of death in combat and learning of the horrors of the Holocaust. Then, in the 1960s, John Rawls spoke out against America's military actions in Vietnam. The Vietnam conflict impelled Rawls to analyze the defects in the American political system that led it to prosecute so ruthlessly and what he saw as unjust war, and to consider how citizens could consciously resist their government's aggressive policies. John Rawls received both Schocker Prize for Logic and Philosophy and the National Humanities Medal in 1999, the latter presented by President Bill Clinton in recognition of how John Rawls' work helped a whole generation of learned Americans revive their faith in democracy itself. John Rawls' most discussed work is his theory of a just liberal society called Justice as Fairness. John Rawls first set out justice as fairness in systematically detailed manner in his 1971 book, A Theory of Justice, which in itself a magnum opus. And this work has achieved a pinnacle of success and gained popularity amongst all class of readers and people. John Rawls continued to rework justice as fairness through his life, restating the theory in Political Liberalism in 1993, The Law of People in 1999, Justice as Fairness in 2001. English philosopher Jonathan argues that while there may be a dispute about the second most important political philosopher of the 20th century, there could be no dispute about the most important, and that is no other than John Rawls. John Rawls was a person who triggered a civil rights movement and in fact championed the cause of positive discrimination, in fact known as affirmative action policies in the United States of America. He is no doubt a great philosopher, a great egalitarian in the real sense of the term. Let us look at the egalitarian discourse developed by John Rawls on the question of social justice. The egalitarian discourse on social justice reached its high point in 1971 with the publication of A Theory of Justice written by John Rawls. To Rawls, social justice is about assuring the protection of equal access to liberties, rights, and opportunities, as well as taking care of the least advantaged members of the society. In this pursuit, Rawls argues for a theory of justice which is based on the maintenance of the following two principles. Principle number one, each person is to have an equal right to the most extensive basic liberty compatible with a similar liberty for all. Principle number two, social and economic equalities are to be arranged so that they are both A, to the greatest benefit of the least advantaged, and B, attached to offices and positions to all under conditions of fair equality of opportunity. Rawls' first principle is familiar one. Each person has an equal right to free speech, association, conscience, thought, property, a fair trial, to vote, hold political office if qualified, and so on. Principle 2a is also familiar. Jobs and services should be open to all. Equal access means equal access. But furthermore, society should be so arranged that as far as possible, people have an equal opportunity to get jobs and gain access to services. Principle 2b, famously known as the difference principle, is a novel one and points towards a significant measure of social equality, but not in the absolute sense. John Rawls' conception of social justice asserts that material inequalities are only justifiable when they work to the advantage of the less well off. Rawls explains the difference principle this way, to say that inequalities in income and wealth are to be arranged for the greatest benefit of the least advantaged simply means that we are to compare schemes of cooperation by seeing how well off the least advantaged are under each scheme, and then to select the scheme under which the least advantaged are better off than they are under any other scheme. By the least advantaged, Rawls is referring to those who lack what he calls primary social goods. Primary social goods, according to John Rawls, include things needed and required by a person seen in the light of the political conceptions of the persons as citizens who are fully cooperating members of society and not merely as human beings apart from any normative conception. These primary goods are things citizens need as a free and equal person living a complete life. They are not things it is simply rational to want or desire or to prefer or even to crave. Such goods include 1. The basic rights and liberties, freedom of thought and liberty of conscience, and the rest. 2. Freedom of movement and freedom of choice of occupation against a background of diverse opportunities, which opportunities allow the pursuit of a variety of ends and give effect to decisions to revise and alter them. 3. Powers and prerogatives of office and positions of authority and responsibility. 4. Income and wealth, understood as all-purpose means having an exchange value generally needed to achieve a wide range of ends, whatever they may be. And 5th, the social base of self-respect, understood as these aspects of basic institutions, normally essential if citizens are to have a lively sense of their worth as persons and to be able to advance their ends with self-confidence. John Rawls also argues that the first principle, the basic liberty principle, has lexical priority in case of conflict over the second principle. That means you cannot sacrifice liberty for economic justice. You must satisfy fully the equal liberty principles before applying the difference principle. Similarly, the principle of fair equality of equal opportunity has priority over the difference principle. Thus, John Rawls specifies that fair equality of opportunity requires not merely that public offices and social positions open in the formal sense, but that all should have a fair chance to attain them. No doubt, he is a great thinker so far as enunciating the principle taking care of every aspect of its nuance. Nevertheless, John Rawls' idea of social justice became subject to the intellectual and political onslaught in the name of economic efficiency. The pursuit of social justice is harming economic growth and to the detriment of all members of the society. The intellectual strand of this reaction was developed by Frederich Von Hayek and Robert Nozick. They are the libertarian scholars, and they have full-fledgedly attacked on the social justice principles developed by John Rawls. They are not the only one in league to criticize the John Rawls. There were many other scholars belonging to different schools of thought, namely Amartya Sen and Nussbaum were also been highly critical some of the institutional mechanism developed by John Rawls. Let us look at their own conceptions of justice. First, in this regard, being as a libertarian conception of justice, we will be first discussing the Frederich Von Hayek. Before starting with his own notions of social justice, let us look at the question of who Frederich Von Hayek is. Frederich Hayek was born in Vienna as Friedrich August von Hayek in 1899 into a family steeped in academic life and scientific research. He worked as a statistician from 1927 to 1931 and became a lecturer in economics at the University of Vienna in 1929, then moved to the University of London in 1931, the University of Chicago in 1950, and the University of Freiburg in 1962, and retired in 1967. He continued writing into the late 1980s and died in 1992. Frederich Hayek worked in the areas of philosophy, philosophy of science, political philosophy, the free will problem, and epistemology. For all that, Hayek was more Hedgehog than fox. His life's work, for which he won a Nobel Prize in 1974, illuminated the nature and significance of spontaneous order. The concept seems simple, yet Hayek spent 6 decades refining his idea, evidently finding elusive the goal of being as clear about as he aspired to be. Hayek served in World War I and said that his experience in the war and his desire to help avoid the mistakes that had led to the war led him to his career. Hayek lived in Austria, Great Britain, and United States and Germany, and became a British subject in 1938. He spent most of his academic life at the London School of Economics, the University of Chicago, and the University of Freiburg. In 1984, he was appointed a member of the Order of the Companions of Honor by Queen Elizabeth, on the advice of Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, for his service to the study of economics. He was the first recipient of the Hans Martin Silver Prize in 1984. He also received the United States Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1991 from President George W. Bush. In 2011, his article, The Use of Knowledge in Society, was selected as one of the top 20 articles published in the American Economic Review during its first 100 years. In his book, Commanding Heights, Daniel Yagin called Hayek the preeminent economist of the last half of the 20th century. His scholarly works include Prices and Production, Monetary Nationalism and International Stability, The Road to Serfdom, Profits, Interest and Investment, The Pure Theory of Capital, Individualism and Economic Order, The Constitution of Liberty, Law, Legislation and Liberty, Volume 1, Rules and Mirage, Law, Legislation and Liberty, The Mirage of Social Justice. Let us understand the conception of social justice as being looked upon by Frederich Von Hayek. Frederich Von Hayek, the winner of Nobel Prize of Economics in 1974, offered neoliberal critique to the idea of social justice as developed and popular in 1970s and quite championed by John Rawls. His views on social justice are best described as outgrowth of his economic doctrines that the economic policy of government should be as non-interventionist to facilitate rational economic decision makings by individuals in the market. The freedom to make rational economic decisions will create an environment of rational social coordination which eventually bring what he called a spontaneous order. Such observations led Hayek to conclude that the state should play a far more modest and minimal role in regulating social and economic cooperation. In the second volume of Law, Legislation and Liberty, Hayek asserted that social justice is mirage. His discontent with social justice could easily be marked when he also called social justice a will of the wisp, an empty formula, empty and meaningless, a vacuous concept, a quasi-religious belief with no content whatsoever, a primitive anthropomorphism like believing in witches or the philosopher's stone, or hollow incantations like open sesame. Hayek further argues that the social justice is particularly dangerous superstition, describing it as that incubus which totally makes the sentiments the instrument for the destruction of all values of a free civilization, leading to the destruction of the indispensable environment in which the tradition moral values alone can flourish, namely personal freedom. Furthermore, social justice has become a source of sloppy thinking and even intellectual dishonesty. In his latter work on the errors of socialism, entitled The Fatal Conceit, he called the word social a weasel word. He referred to social justice as much to the worse use of social one that wholly destroys the meaning of the word it qualifies a semantic fraud. It should be added that Hayek's hostile remarks on social justice and insistence on minimal government is much influenced by an inveterate tendency to mistrust the motives of politicians. In a sense, He is not claiming that the idea of social justice is meaningless in its intent. In fact, he looked at human conduct and situations created by human in terms of just or unjust. In this line, Hayek does not deny that we may have a duty to help reduce inequality and suffering caused by others or by nature. He also implicitly accepts the legitimacy of state provisions of income support for those who can't support themselves in the market. Hayek, for example, suggests that a scheme for assistance against several deprivation is in the interest of all. Indeed, he adds that it may be felt a duty of all to assist within the organized community those who cannot help themselves. Here, Hayek agreed to the principle that there may be a more imperative to put in place a minimum income. In his earlier work, The Constitution of Liberty, Hayek considered that a more equal distribution of income or wealth was desirable, but did not approve the desirability of discriminatory coercion or privilege as sufficient justification to achieve the same. Hayek also offered a specific principle. And what is that? The principle is of maximizing the chances of success for any person picked out at random, success in satisfying whatever purpose that person may have. Hayek also argued that there is no need morally to justify a specific distribution of income or wealth which have not been brought about deliberately but are the outcomes of a game that is played because it improves the chances of all. His confidence in libertarian society led him to claim in social justice, socialism and democracy that the least well-off under a free market society do better and get more than they would in an egalitarian, centrally directed scheme, though this is an overthinking of Frederich Von Hayek. Now let us look at the question, how Robert Nozick looked at the question of social justice. But before starting his prima facie discourse on social justice and his perception over it, we first need to know who is Robert Nozick. Robert Nozick was born in Brooklyn in 1938 to a Russian Jewish immigrant family. He earned an undergraduate philosophy degree from Columbia University in 1959 and a PhD in philosophy from Princeton University in 1963. He taught for a couple of years at Princeton, Harvard, and Rockefeller universities before moving permanently to Harvard in 1969. He became widely known through his 1974 book, Anarchy, State, and Utopia, which shocked the philosophical world with its robust and sophisticated defense of the minimal state, the state that restricts activity to the protection of the individual rights of life, liberty, property, and contract, and eschews the use of state power to redistribute income to make people moral or to protect people from harming themselves. He is, in the real sense of the term, a more revised version of John Locke. Now look at that, how Robert Nozick went on to publish important books. His important books covers on economics, metaphysics, epistemology, philosophy of science, and axiology. His important works include Philosophical Explanations, which came in 1981, The Examined Life came in 1989, The Nature of Rationality came in 1993, Socratic Puzzles published in 1997, and Invariances published in 2001. Above all, the most important work for which he is known in politico-philosophical academia is Anarchy, State, and Utopia, which got published in 1974 and changed the entire direction of liberal thinking and got the title of Neoliberal Phase of Human Understanding of Market Society as a whole. Robert Nozick was always lively, engaging, audacious, and philosophically ambitious writings, which revealed an amazing knowledge of advanced work in many disciplines, including decision theory, economics, mathematics, physics, psychology, and religion. Robert Nozick died in 2002 from stomach cancer, for which he was first treated in 1994. As an undergraduate student at Columbia, and at least in his early days, he is as graduate student at Princeton, Robert Nozick endorsed socialism. This is surprising in itself. At Columbia, he was a founder of what was to become the local chapter of the Students for a Democratic Society. Later, in the company of more libertarian thinkers and economists, he changed his mind and started looking at the question from a different perspective. Later got into a shape called neoliberal thinking, and Robert Nozick completely said no to his earlier thinking of socialism and adopted a new thinking in his most popularly book. At later yet points in his life, Nozick downplayed his apparent repudiation of political libertarianism. In 2001 interview, he said, "The rumors of my deviation or apostasy from libertarianism were much exaggerated. I think invariances makes clear the extent to which I still am within the general framework of libertarianism, especially the ethics chapter and his section on the core principles of ethics." Now, let us look at beyond his biography and the question of justice he is undertaking in his book, Anarchy, State and Utopia. This book is really a serious attempt in the second half of this 20th century to reaffirm the faith and beliefs of classical liberalism. As such, it quickly became one of the key texts of the so-called libertarians and New Right. This text is a leading philosophical counter-statement of Nozick to the ideas of social justice, especially developed by John Rawls. Drawing from Lockean doctrine of inalienable natural rights, Nozick argues for the entitlement theory of justice. The basic presumptions of Nozick is that societies consist simply of individuals, each of whom is assumed to be endowed by nature with rights that no government may infringe or abrogate without the bearer's consent. One consequence of this inviolability and moral supremacy of the individual is that the infringement of individuals' right for supposedly greater good is inadmissible in any process of political decision making. Another consequence is that the only kind of state that is rationally justifiable is a minimal state, equipped with just enough power to perform the functions of protection and defense, a state that will impinge upon the rights of its subjects as little as possible. He suggested three justice preserving principles. 1. A principle of justice in initial acquisition explains the circumstances under which property can be appropriated from nature. It means wealth has to be justly acquired in the first place. That is, it should not have been stolen and the rights of others should not have been infringed. A principle justice in transfer explains how property can justly be transferred from one person to another. It means the justly acquired wealth has to be justly transferred from one responsible person to another. The principle number 3, a principle of justice in rectification deals with violations of the first two principles. It means if wealth has been acquired or transferred unjustly, this injustice should be rectified. It is clear from the above principle that Hayek and many other libertarians, Nozick was also deeply suspicious about the idea of social justice and rejected absolutely the moral basis of the redistribution of wealth and resources. He argues that if wealth is transferred from rich to poor, either within a society or between societies, it is only as an act of private charity, undertaken through personal choice rather than moral obligations. Now, this is all about Nozick's thinking on social justice principle. Let us look at two more scholars, Amartya Sen and Martha Nussbaum, who has developed capability approach of social justice. Amartya Sen, but before discussing Amartya Sen and Nussbaum thinking on social justice, let us start with Amartya Sen, who Amartya Sen is. For Amartya Sen is an Indian economist and philosopher who since 1972 has taught and worked in the United Kingdom and United States. He has made contributions to welfare economics, social choice theory, economic and social justice, economic theories of famines, and indexes of the measure of well-being of citizens of developing countries. He was awarded the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Sciences in 1998 for his work in welfare economics. Between 1960 and 1961, Sen was a visiting professor at Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the United States. He was also a visiting professor at Berkeley and Cornell. He taught as professor of economics between 1963 and 1971 at the Delhi School of Economics, where he completed his magnum opus Collective Choice and Social Welfare by 1969. This is a period considered to be a golden period in the history of Delhi School of Economics. In 1972, he joined the London School of Economics as a professor of economics, where he taught until 1977. From 1977 to 1986, he taught and then the Drummond Professor of Political Economy and a fellow of All Sioux College from 1980. In 1987, he joined Harvard as the Thomas W. Lamont University Professor of Economics. In 1998, he was appointed as a Master of Trinity College, Cambridge. In January 2004, Sen returned to Harvard. He also established the Eva Colony Trust at the former London Golders University in the name of his deceased wife. Amartya Sen is also known for being one of the strongest champions of rationalism, secularism and egalitarianism in India, and he has condemned the ghettoization of any kind. His most scholarly works include On Economic Equality, published in 1997, that got expanded. Amartya Sen work also include Poverty and Famines, which is very essential and popular one. His work also include Choice, Welfare and Measurement, Inequality Re-examined in 1992. He also worked with Martha Nussbaum and written a classic book called The Quality of Life. He has worked with Jean Dries and published a book in 1998, India, Economic Development and Social Opportunity. And most important work came out from Amartya Sen in 1999, known as Development as Freedom. Then in 2000, he has written Freedom, Rationality and Social Choice. In 2005, he has written The Argumentative Indian. He has published The Idea of Justice in 2010, and more latest work of Amartya Sen with Jean Dries is An Uncertain Glory, The Contradictions of Modern India. Let us look at the question of justice vis-a-vis Amartya Sen is concerned. Amartya Sen, through his recent intervention, The Idea of Justice and earlier works like Development as Freedom, On Economic Inequality, Poverty and Famines, approach the question of justice differently. Sen argues that the classical theories of social justice are in error while addressing the question of capability. In Development as Freedom, Sen argues that what matters is not what resources you have or what level of subjective welfare you can achieve, but rather what your resources and other opportunities allow you to do and be. Sen calls this phenomena your capability function. For Sen, different individuals might need different packages of resources to function to the same degree, dependent on their particular needs. Sen further argues that a functioning is an achieved being or doing, being healthy, having control over your own environment and so on, whereas a capability is in effect one's opportunity to achieve a functioning. For example, if a rich person decides to fast, he or she may lack the functioning of nutrition, but he or she still has the capability. The person could nourish himself if he or she were to choose to do so. Sen thus propounds that government should be concerned with ensuring the concrete capabilities of their citizens rather than functioning. Through his book Idea of Justice, Sen offered a powerful critique of the Rawlsian notion of social justice. His criticism of Rawls involved around the neglect of Nyaya for Niti by Rawls. The Niti-Nyaya distinction ranges over two disagreements. First, Rawls focus upon what a perfectly just society should be, whereas for Sen, the most important problems that we need to confront are comparative problems concerning ways of moving social societies that are less unjust. Second, for Rawls, justice is essentially about institutions, and the particular distribution of goods are derivatively just if they are produced by just institutions. Sen, on the contrary, thinks that justice is essentially about how well or badly off individuals actually are and what happens to people. Amartya Sen is linked capabilities with substantive freedom, focuses on actual ability to do different things that a person values. For example, a person with a large amount of wealth cannot be considered advantaged if she suffers from several disability. Rawls' primary goods are for Sen fetishist because they wrongly consider primarily means where they should rather consider ends. For example, poverty cannot be properly understood just in terms of income or wealth for that matter, because Sen claims what really counts is the way in which different persons convert income or primary goods into good living. Disabilities constitute another relevant example because they clearly point to a difficulty in the conversion of resources into capabilities. Now, let us look at Martha Nussbaum thinking. Before starting with Martha Nussbaum analysis of social justice, we should consider first who is Martha Nussbaum. Martha Nussbaum, born May 1947, is an American philosopher and the current Ernst Frank Distinguished Service Professor of Law and Ethics at the University of Chicago, a chair that includes appointments in the philosophy department and the law school. She has a particular interest in ancient Greek and Roman philosophy, political philosophy, feminism and ethics, including animal rights. She also holds associate appointments in classic divinity and political science, is a member of the Committee on Southern Asian Studies and a board member of the Human Rights Program. She previously taught at Harvard and Brown. She has received honorary degrees from 50 colleges and universities in the United States, Canada, Latin America, Asia, Africa, and Europe, including Lawrence University Williams College, the University of Athens, Greece, the University of St. Andrews, Scotland, the University of Edinburgh, Scotland, Catholic University Leuven, Belgium, the University of Toronto, the École Normale Supérieure, Paris, the New School University, the University of Haifa, Israel, Emory University, the University of Welfare, and the Universal Labrador, Mexico. She received the Grammy Award in Education in 2002, the Barnard College Medal of Distinction in 2003, the Radcliffe Alumni Recognition Award in 2007, and the Continental Medal of the Graduation School of Arts and Science at Harvard University in 2010. She is an academic in the Academy of Finland. In 2009, she won the ESK Award from the German Social Science Research Council for her contributions to social system reforms and the American Philosophical Society's Henry M. Phillips Prize in Jurisprudence. In 2012, she was awarded the Prince of Austria's Prize in the Social Sciences. His publications include Aristotle's De Motu Animal, 1978, The Fragility of Goodness, Luck and Ethics in Greek, Tragedy and Philosophy in 1986, Lover's Knowledge, The Theory of Desire, Poetic Justice, For Love of Country, Cultivating Humanity, A Classical Defenses of the Uniform Liberal Education, Sex and Social Justice, Women and Human Development, Upheaval of Thought, Hiding from Humanity, Frontiers of Justice. Martha Nussbaum and justice. Let us look at this question. Martha Nussbaum worked in collaboration with Amartya Sen on issues of development and contributed significantly so far as the capability approach to justice is concerned. She uses the term basic capabilities to refer to the innate equipment of individual that is necessary for developing the more advanced capabilities, such as capability of speech and language, which is present in the newborn but needs to be fostered. In her book, Frontiers of Justice, she states there can be various other factors involved, such as a wide range of motives, including the love of justice itself, and prominently including a moralized compassion for those who have less than they need to lead decent and dignified lives. She has also been critical to Sen's idea of SDI, as to say that the nations being compared in areas such as health and educational attainment are very fine, but concerning what level of health service or what level of educational provisions a just society would deliver as fundamental entitlement of all its citizens, the view is suggestive but basically silent. Nussbaum's view on state actions in the mitigation of human justice has the state take on a positive role. She agrees with Sen regarding the existence of negative rights instead of positive rights. Often, she says that often fundamental entitlements have been understood as prohibitions against interfering in state action, and if the state keeps its hand off, those rights are taken to have been secured. The state has no further affirmative task. This, she says, leaves things disgracefully undetermined as to whether hindrances supplied by the market or private actors are to be considered violations of fundamental rights of citizens. Rather, she demands affirmative understanding of fundamental rights, believing it to be extremely important for establishment of social justice, and understanding that directs government to think from the start about what obstacles there are to full and effective empowerment for all citizens, and to devise measures that address these obstacles. Nussbaum not only strengthened the capability approach, but also produced a provisional list of capabilities in her book Women and Human Development, the Capabilities Approach, which she claims has universal validity and should be ensured in every country's constitutions. The first principle is life, being able to live to end of a human life of a normal length. Second, bodily health, being able to have good health, including reproductive health, to be adequately nourished, to have adequate shelter. Third, bodily integrity, being able to move freely from place to place, being able to be secure against assault, including sexual assault, child sexual abuse and domestic violence, having opportunities for sexual satisfaction and for choice in that matters of reproduction. Fourth, sense, imagination and thought, being able to think, imagine and reason and to do things in a way informed and cultivated by an adequate education, freedom of speech and expression and religion. Fifth, emotions, being able to have attachment to things and people outside ourselves to love those who love and care for us. Six, practical reason, being able to engage in critical reflections about the planning of one's life. Six, of affiliation, being able to live with and towards other, to recognize and show concern for other human beings, to engage in various forms of social interactions, having the social basis of self-respect and non-humiliation, not being discriminated against on the basis of gender, religion, race, ethnicity, and the like. Next, other species, being able to live with concern for and in relation to animal, plants, and the world of nature. Play, being able to laugh, to play, to enjoy recreational activities. Next, control over one's environment, being able to participate effectively in political choices and govern one's life, being able to have real opportunities to hold properly, having the right to seek employment on an equal basis with others. Thus, Nussbaum not only advocates that everyone is entitled as a matter of justice to threshold levels of all capabilities on her list, but also insisted that it is the government's duties to guarantee these entitlements. Nevertheless, she remains silent on the questions who precisely should bear on the burdens and responsibilities for realizing these capabilities. This is all about the social justice conceptions and perception of the different scholars. Let us conclude what we have discussed. To sum up, the term social justice is widely used in political and philosophical debates and fiercely contested. This has given rise to diverse perspectives on social justice. Many of these concentrate on advising principle for distribution of scarce good. With substantive focus on liberty, the egalitarian framework of John Rawls accommodated the principles of equal opportunity and inequality to favor the least disadvantaged section of the society. However, Rawlsian pursuit of social justice was treated detrimental to all the members of the society by the intellectual strand of libertarianism developed by Hayek and Nozick. They argued that the government action to enforce a theory of social justice interfered with the liberty of individuals to govern their own life and property. But more fundamentally, Hayek and Nozick both argued that society as a whole cannot be assessed just or unjust. An alternative to distributional principle of social justice was articulated as capability approach initially proposed by Amartya Sen and developed by Martha Nussbaum. This approach has been influential in two ways. First, it has been applied to development economics. Second, it has helped to move forward the debate on equality and social justice. Thank you.